Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another edition of our Real Estate Backstory. We do this every Monday morning. Kind of start you off with your week. My name is Alan Richard. I'm the managing broker at Max One Realty and Realtor Partners.
My name is Ming Richardson. I'm the compliance broker from Maximum One Realty and Realtor Partners.
And my lovely bride.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so today we are gonna start off talking about, the NA lawsuit and, recent changes, that kind of stuff. A lot of people have been saying, oh, we have to be very careful talking about that. But we feel really differently. We feel like we have to be the voice that is communicating with everybody, talking about what's really important, and how to make how do we navigate waters.
Understand video are timestamps, so we gather information as the market shifts. So some of the information that you may review later may not be valid, depending on when you review the video.
Yeah, we're going to share everything as of like
the current market condition
today, kind of thing.
Correct.
But just understand that there may be future changes. If you're watching this as an older video, it may not be necessarily exactly the same time.
So that's our full disclosure.
Yeah, that's our disclosure
and disclaimer.
Yeah. So now, one thing that we did want to kind of talk about. So there was a recent study said that over half of Americans are saying that housing affordability is impacting how they vote. And while we're not political, we do understand that politics has a play here. And so at the same time, and I'm not pro-Biden, anti-Biden. I'm not
We're
political.
not apolitical, but we're just making a statement as a statement was presented.
President Biden came out and said that the National Association of Realtors agreed for the first time ever that Americans can now negotiate lower commissions on their home. And that is a blatant lie. I'm sorry. It's not true, right?
We have always been able to negotiate. And
especially here in Georgia, we've always been able to negotiate, kind of thing. And so NAR, came out, did a real big pushback saying, you know what, that's not the fact that, like what you said is not true. But we have to understand that what's happening with the lawsuit, on part, it's a giant money grab. On part, it's also really political right now. So there's a lot of folks talking about it, and we have to understand what that really means for us.
And it's political depending on your point of view, whether you're the buyer, seller, the president, or realtor. Doesn't matter. It's always a point of view. What you got to understand is you got to look at the facts and how the equations are derived from.
Well, now, speaking of equation, one of the things that they're talking about is how lowering commissions is going to reduce the price of the home. And that is not, we don't set property values. Now, the Federal Bank of Richmond came out and they issued this big research paper claiming that real estate commissions are too high and that reducing commissions will lower the price of homes. And you have to see the formula that they came out. Like I'm going to share with you the formula. Now, our daughter is a physics is a physics major, and even she's like scratching her head, going, "What on earth?" Like if you have to convolute and come up with this incredibly
difficult,
complex, impossible to understand formula, like you're just making crap up. I'm sorry. This is just it's I find it really aggravating.
It's disturbing because it's almost saying that the average American have no sense at all in interpreting what is a fair market value or the appraiser. So for me, it does not, if you want to talk to our level, talk to at our level, not in a level where it's not comprehensible.
But we have a lot of agents. There's a recent study talking about or inquiring about how worried are you about the recent changes, and there's a lot of angst. There's a lot of realtors that feel like this is a very negative thing. And I promise you, if you say that this is going to be negative to your business,
you're probably not going to succeed.
It's going to happen.
So at the end of the day, you have to look at it from a different set of lens, because this is all about your value proposition. If you cannot convince me that you add value to my wealth building, then you probably will not get my business.
Right. Well, now we just want to run through. So there are going to be some operational changes that come along. So no longer there's no offer of buyer broker compensation in the MLS. However, the seller may offer concessions in the MLS that would include buyer broker compensation. It has to be asked for in the contract. It is subject to open negotiations. And the buyer agent, this is a biggie. The buyer's agent can't be
It's
compensated
huge.
more than what is already in the pre-negotiated amount for the buyer brokerage agreement. No one can offer their services as free, which I agree that's dumb to do. And then buyer brokerage agreement must be signed prior to showing a property. And you can't do a buyer brokerage agreement anymore that's open or variable. You can't say, depends and things like that. You must state your commission clearly in advance. So, we have we've been talking to everybody. Everybody's been talking to us too. And so as of today, what we have is FMLS has kind of came out and said, listen, we don't really have a horse in this race. We're not part of NAR. We're not being sued by
They're a private
anybody.
company.
And they're not making, as of right now, FMLS says they're not planning on making any changes at all. Now, I personally believe that they're going to go along with a lot of industry standards and MLS changes, but as of right now, that's what they're saying. Georgia MLS is kind of this weird hybrid. And so Georgia MLS is saying that they are planning on allowing seller concessions in the MLS in private remarks, which I'm like, why take it out of public remarks and put it in private remarks? But that's what we're looking to do.
Well, because if you put in public remarks and is construed that the seller may have been coerced and given compensation, but what this whole lawsuit is missing is that this is negotiation during listing, and the seller has fully opt to offer compensation. So, listing agents, if your
you're ahead of
seller
us. We're going to get there, Ming. So let's stay. No, well, I understand, but let's follow the plan here. So, as far as Georgia MLS goes, they are planning on allowing it in private remarks. Now, here's a novel idea, buyers agents, reading the private remarks. Like here's a great way to make sure that everyone reads their private remarks. Also, we can also, like as of right now, F-255 instructions to closing attorney can be uploaded in the doc section of either Georgia MLS or FMLS. So those things can still be in there.
As a documentation, like you do with seller disclosure, the homeowner association, or if you want to upload F-258 as well,
we're going to get there in a second.
You can do that as well.
Yeah. So unknown, pending, or in negotiations still right now. Right now, Fannie and Freddie are in negotiations saying, hey, can commissions be financed in? Can it be added in? We don't have the answer to that yet. Can a VA buyer pay a commission? That's in negotiation. VA, everyone's
VA loan.
Well, you remember, as of right now, no, but VA is in like we have several months until these changes come into effect. So please don't get stressed out on this. Like we don't have a VA buyer issue right now, and so we have several months to get it, and VA is already aware. We are gonna like mid-year changes on the GAR contracts.
It's gonna be huge.
Woo, it's gonna be off the hook, baby. We're gonna be. There's gonna be so many interesting things coming forward. So we know that's gonna come. In addition, we know there are going to be MLS rule changes. All these things are going to be coming down the pipe.
So just keep yourself informed in an industry so you know what's going on. And once again, like I said, these are time-sensitive information. So there's a lot that can be done in 3 months. Mm-hmm. So what we are being told right now may not be the case when it comes to the final ending. But at this time, based on our interpretation of license law and the way it works, these are acceptable methods.
Right. So now in the future, listen, we're going to be able to ask for the concession in the contract for the benefit of the buyer. So we're going to continue to be able to use special stipulations 619 and 620. Remember, our seller can still pay commission via concession. We can also use F-258, which is, co-op commission agreement to be used prior to showing. And so the seller can agree to that beforehand. Now, working with sellers is going to be different. And so, like Ming talked about earlier, you're going to have a really good value proposition. And then you have to be ready to start having conversation of how does compensation for a buyer's broker going to work, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Concessions should be part of our pricing conversation going forward. We need to talk about who are today's buyers, first-time VA buyers, and the fact that they're going to need to be able to finance in their
commission into the
commission,
sale
right?
price.
And so, as a listing agent, are you ready to work for free, or are you going to refer those signed calls and those leads out?
The
And
underrepresented
yeah,
buyers.
how's that compensation going to work? Are you going to work out a package deal with your seller and say, look, if I represent the buyer, it's going to be this much kind of thing?
And for those who
No.
are in a brokerage that do not allow dual agency, understand your seller is always your client and your buyer is always your customer. So
Yes.
there is a difference in relationship.
Now
Okay.
you need to update your listing presentations here, and
Mm-hmm.
and so we have new listing presentations going out, not just to us, but across the entire Maximum One family. We have updated listing presentations. We had already been making them, but now you're going to have listing presentations that you can use, which address a lot of these issues. For our buyers, like the world in dealing with your buyers as a buyer's agent is changing. To begin with, we are going to start treating our buyers like we do our sellers. This is a really
So
good
no
thing.
longer a fly by night. You
Yeah.
actually have to sit down with your buyer and have a
Well,
consultation.
and we need to have that value proposition again with our buyers. Now, not only that, but like how and where do you meet them for the first time? Because you can't show a property unless you have a written buyer's agreement.
Well, what happened is that if you don't have one, you cannot negotiate the commission into the sale because you have no rights.
Well, but the problem is that you're going to have to ask, or you're going to have to show value before you can ask for your buyer brokerage agreement.
Correct.
And so to do that, you must have your buyer's presentation. Now, all a buyer's presentation really is, this is your buyer service menu. And these are all the things we talk about. This is what I bring to the transaction. This is everything I'm going to do. And so you can say, and we're seeing right now tons of information, folks sending out all the value that they bring. Realize that at the end of the day, whether it's working with buyers or working with sellers, it's about having a buyer's and a seller's presentation. That value proposition, that's your buyer's presentation. That's your seller's presentation. We have these buyer presentations. We're updating it again right now.
Yep.
So your updated buyer and seller presentations are going to be crucial. You're going to meet with buyers before you show them homes, the same way as you meet with sellers before you list their property. You're going to go through and walk through. This is how I'm going to help you, find the home of your dream, protect you as we go along, the whole 9 yards there. So just a couple of wrapping up points here and some best practices that we kind of want to talk to you about. First of all, understand that national news is not Georgia news.
Real estate news.
We're ahead of the curve, folks. We are, like our sellers have always been able to offer zero co-op.
If you think about during downturn market, we have flat fee listing broker. So that is part of negotiation. Seller was never forced to do anything they didn't want.
Well, and stop sending me the like, oh, here's a 1% commission. Here's a zero commission. Guess what? Those were here last week. They were here last year. They were here 5 years ago. You've been able to offer, sellers have been able to offer that. So like this is a no big deal.
Our agent has been able to navigate through those, difficult transactions to where they basically did a value proposition with the seller, say, this is what my seller and my service, my buyer and my service worth. And seller, because the condition of my buyer, our offer price does include that co-op fee.
Well, and Georgia was already a BRETA state, brokerage relationships and real estate transactions. We were already part of that. And like real estate's not transacted the same way in the rest of the United States.
Correct.
Georgia is really ahead of the curve. And so like for a lot of the country, maybe not a lot, but a significant portion of the country, these are massive changes. And for us, we're kind of like, yeah, we already did that. Yeah, we'll already protect our consumer that way. No, you've been able to offer, like everyone's been able to negotiate commissions. Like none of that is that big a deal. It's just, it's a lot of semantic stuff. So no matter what, we have to make sure we're bringing value. Ming's talked about it several times, and she is so spot on. Whether it's a buyer or a seller, bring value first. Update your buyer and your seller presentations. Please don't go and dump NAR and dump GAR. First of all, you're protected under those settlements that they've done, and even if you may not be that happy with them necessarily, and I don't know, there's so many people out there suing everybody. The fact that realtors are protected under this, I think is, do I know of an attorney trying to sue non-realtors? No, but would it surprise me? No, anymore. So I don't recommend dumping
At the end of the
GAR and
day,
NAR
it's
kind of
about
thing.
money, so they go for
Yeah,
the big fish.
but
And honestly, um, GAR changes its
yeah,
form every year to
I
reflect
promise mid-year is going to be changed this
the
year. Yeah.
climate that we're in, and it's written to protect the
So,
brokers and his agents. So why would you dump something that is going to protect you?
well, and please, like just be smart. Don't go complaining on social media. Don't go out bashing NER. No nasty memes. I know there's a lot of folks that do it for clicks and that kind of stuff, but for the vast majority of us, we're
This is a
like,
professional
is this what you want to
industry.
come across to your clients? I mean, like
Correct.
it's your clients who are going to be seeing this, and so just be smart about what you're putting out there, and understand that just like everything else in real estate, the only constant we have is change. There's always going to be change.
And this is
Yep.
going to push real estate into more in a relationship type of transaction
Yep.
versus a one-time
Yep.
transaction. So if you're here to really build your community, I promise you, you'll be here for a
Yep.
very long time.
Now let's move over into like regular real estate information here. So more Americans doubt they'll get approved for home and auto loans than ever before, kind of thing. Nearly a third think that they'll get rejected, even for a refinance. Listen, our mortgage credit availability is still really good. There's a lot of positive things going on. This past Wednesday, the Fed met and they they did not raise the rates, but they also didn't cut the rates. Now,
Mm-mm.
and that was seen very positively in the markets. So the markets really blew up. But when that happened, that it affected the 10-year treasury, which in turn made the interest rates jump up instead of down, which, is always counterintuitive. So, right now we are still doing this whole fluctuation thing. It's highly tied to inflation. As inflation eases, you're going to see interest rates easing as the year goes along. Now, also, while speaking about mortgages here, FHA has raised the loan limits for manufactured homes. And they haven't done this. This is the first time they raised it since 2008. So we're talking like 15 or so years
Mm-hmm.
since they raised it. And so, combo loans or single family or single person loans kind of thing, all those have been updated. Please don't be like, oh no, mobile modular home, manufactured home is icky. No, there's some of these are amazing.
Some of them have features that's beyond
Yep.
the original homes that's built in 1960s.
Yeah.
So do take a look, know what you're talking about. Go do some
Hmm.
research. Go look at some of the products, and and allow your client to make that decision, not you.
Yeah. So now we do have a lot of folks that are locked in by their mortgages. There's a new study by FHA, Federal Housing Financing Authority, FHFA, I guess, and showing that we have roughly 250,000 people that are waiting simply for interest rates to come down. So
Mhm.
as interest rates come down, it is going to add more inventory in there, which we're really glad to see. Now, the Georgia state legislation, they met and they've come up with some new solicitation rules dealing with people that are unlicensed reaching out to consumers. And so they have put some really strict requirements on unsolicited agreements that reach out to people about buying and selling their
These are
homes
your
if
wholesalers.
they're unlicensed. And so the new rules here is on anything that's being sent out in big bold letters, it has to say, this is a solicitation. The sender is contacting you to inquire to your interest in selling a home or real estate. You are under no obligation to respond. And then on the letter itself or on the cover, it has to say, solicitation. You
You
are
are
under
no
no obligation to respond. Now, here's the difference. You have to have that unless you're licensed. If you are licensed, this doesn't count for you. So like it's not like
Well, when you're licensed,
you don't have to put this out there before you can put out postcards and those
right.
kind of things.
So when you're licensed, you practice by a much higher code of ethics and license law, whereas some of these wholesalers basically they are very predatory sometimes.
Some of them are, yeah.
For folks that are in distress, elderly, that don't understand this is not a required response.
And some of them don't look like a solicitation. Some of them look like bills. Some of these are just dirty.
Listen,
so we're really glad to see this come along.
How many times do y'all get a quote, looks like a check in the mail, and not realizing it may be a loan? Because some people don't read a fine print. And yes, did they sign a document? Absolutely. But did they fully understood what they were signing? No, they did not.
Yep. All right, I want to share with you what the average homeowner's insurance cost is. You can see on, this is the national map here. In Georgia, 1.8%. That is the average cost for homeowners insurance based on their purchase, home value.
The value of the home.
Started babbling. And so that's also just a good, relative term or number to kind of know that in Georgia, homeowners, it runs about 1.8%. It is up, but it puts us somewhere in the middle of the, like right along the middle in there kind of thing. It runs between 1% and 3%. Now, new construction, we're glad to see some new construction going on. New construction starts permits are at almost a 2-year high.
Which is great because we need the inventory.
We do, and we're seeing a lot more of it come on. At the same time, home builder sentiment is coming up big time. And so like the builders are feeling a lot more positive about it. We're seeing them do more construction. Now, a couple of things out here that, we love our builders and our builders love us. And, but they're doing a couple of things to really sweeten the deal. And we want to make sure right now, 62% of all the builders are offering sales incentives. About 40% of them are building smaller homes to address affordability. Another 36% have reduced prices kind of thing.
Well, they understand that, affordability, and that's the bottom line. They can't build a product that a average person cannot afford.
Yeah. But we're seeing where they are addressing affordability in a lot of different ways. And one of the biggies that we see is what they're doing with interest rates. Mm-hmm. We saw 4.99 come through this past week and that kind of stuff. So if you're not comfortable in new construction, get comfortable.
Please, and also understand how new construction operates.
Yep.
All right. A lot of the earnest money, it is gone. They don't look at it as earnest money. They look at it as security deposit, and there's no protection on security deposit. So before you take a buyer to a new home construction, I'm not saying all of them do it this way, but make sure you read the fine print in reference to any money that's deposited with the builder. Because on the flip side, you got to understand the builders incur all these expenses in building a product for a buyer who has contractually signed on a dotted line.
Yep.
And they got to pay those expenses as well. So, and this is why a lot of time new construction or security deposit, not necessary earnest money.
Yep.
So it's hard to get them back. I actually just had to deal with 2 recently new construction homes where, because the fact that we were able to prove beyond shadow of doubt that our client was not in default, the buyers, were able to get that money back. But it's hard to prove 9 out of 10.
We have some new construction classes that we're in process of putting out there. Look for our CE calendars coming on those. But there's a lot great happening in new construction. You need to know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
FMLS.
Changing their dashboard.
Their dashboard is different. And so when you first log in, you're going to be like, where's everything at? Just don't freak out. There's nothing new. It's new. They just move things around more. So not really a big deal, but just didn't want you to be like, what's going on?
It's very app looking.
Anytime that there's changes that, we already had one of our agents been like, FMLS is changing too. I'm like, this has nothing to do with anything else. Okay. So overall, just in let's look at our numbers. Median sale prices are still up about 5.5% year over year,
which is great.
Good, solid place to be.
Beginning of the year, we were probably around less than 3.
Pending sales are still down a little bit, but we are trending in a much better fashion right now. We're glad to see that. New listings of homes, new listings are up 15%, and overall total listings are up by about 5%. Here in Georgia, just from last year to this year, total inventory is up almost 15%. 14.7% is what our total inventory is up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, really good news, right? We need that inventory, especially heading into the spring market. This is a really great thing to see. Now, one challenge we're seeing is with increased inventory, and because pending sales aren't where we want them to be yet, we're seeing more listings take a price drop for this time of year than we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years. So it's one of those where sellers are taking price drops. The sellers are going to have to be realistic about pricing, and also they want to make sure that they're realistic about what's going on with the concessions and the co-op concessions here, because like those buyers can't afford. No one's going to buy a home unrepresented. It's their most expensive asset. It doesn't make any sense.
And we also have seen a lot of contract that, come on listing and fall off, come on listing and fall off, and come on listing and fall off. So, and that is typically indication either there's a deferred maintenance or the price is too high because it didn't pass the appraisal.
Yep. Now, don't forget that, home ownership is where wealth is tied up. There's, we're going to share this with you. Potential growth on household wealth over the next 5 years, just based on home equity alone,
and the value.
It means that for a $400,000 home over the next 5 years is going to grow by about $80,000. That's just from equity, right?
Yes.
Now, don't forget to get your Max One swag at max1market.com. And then this week, we only have one CE class coming up this week. And Ming and I are both going to be teaching it. We're teaching contracts, offer, and acceptance. That's going to be over, it's basic contracts class, where we go over everything happening. Now, please understand, nothing has changed, right? So like we're going over the contracts the way they're written right now, because that's what we have to work with. And so don't stress about anything.
And a lot of my agent has called me and say, hey, with a new reason what's going on with NAR, is there anything I need to be aware of? I said, nothing changed. I mean, as long as you are able to identify that there's a co-op commission and the commission instructions are signed, and then there's nothing that has changed.
So we hope you guys have a great week. If we can be of any kind of service, please call, text, smoke signals. We love y'all. Have a great one.
Have a great day.
Bye, guys.